Saint Julia, also known as Saint Julia of Corsica, was a virgin martyr who is venerated as a saint. She, along with Saint Devota, are the patron saints of Corsica. Both of them were martyred in pre-Christian Corsica under Roman rule. Although Julia is included in most summary lives of the saints, the details somewhat vary. A few basic accounts emerge that tell us the story. Bishop Victor Vitensis of Africa wrote most of the story from her time while investigating her cause. Julia was born of noble aristocratic parents in Carthage, South Africa. She grew up with a deep faith, and her parents loved her very much. The ancient city of Carthage, founded by the Phoenicians, competed with Rome for domination in the western part of the Mediterranean. Given the high-profile nature of the city, it was also subject to numerous barbarian attacks, and the city's defenses had crumbled. During one such attack by the Vandals, Julia was taken from her family. The Vandals later sold her into slavery. She was purchased by a pagan merchant of Syria named Eusebius. Despite her dire circumstances, she did not complain or feel sorry for herself. Rather, Julia accepted everything as a gift from the Lord and performed the most humble tasks with wonderful cheerfulness. In her spare time, she read holy books and prayed fervently. So ardent was her love of God. In fact, her very joyful nature stood out to Eusebius. As such, she quickly became Eusebius's favorite slave. Her virtuous lifestyle and joyful attitude made her the best worker. It was easy to be her master. One day, Eusebius was headed on a journey to Gaul. He decided to bring Julia with him. Upon reaching the northern part of an island, he anchored his ship. From a distance, he saw that sacrifices were about to be conducted by the pagans, and he immediately left with all his people to attend the ceremony. On that day, they were slaying a bull to the devils. Julia stayed back in the ship because she would not be defiled by the superstitious ceremonies, which she openly rejected. The governor of the island, Felix, was a narrow-minded pagan who needed to have things his way. Eusebius was welcomed by Felix, and he joined them in their celebration. One of Felix's men saw Julia alone in the ship, praying to God. He quickly informed this to his master, who didn't take this kindly. Felix called Eusebius and asked who this woman was who dared to insult their gods. "She is a Christian," Eusebius said. He explained that he had tried to convince her to give up her faith many times. Yet, even being her master, she did not move from her faith. Eventually, he stopped trying. It didn't matter to him because she was a wonderful worker. That excuse was not going to work for the stubborn governor. Eusebius explained he could not bear parting with Julia because she was so diligent and faithful in her work for him. Felix wanted to buy Julia at any cost. He even offered 4 of his slaves in return for her alone. Eusebius refused, saying, "No, for I would lose the most valuable thing I have in the world rather than be deprived of her." Felix was even more angry when he heard this. Then he thought of a plan to get hold of Julia. Felix prepared a banquet and made good Eusebius and his men drink a lot of wine. When they were intoxicated and asleep, he asked his men to get Julia. The men took her to the shore, where she stood before Felix, alone and unprotected. All the governor wanted was to break Julia's faith. He tried to get her to sacrifice to his gods. He told her he would grant her freedom if she would obey. But Julia refused to deny Christ. "My freedom is to serve Christ," she said, "whom I love every day in all the purity of my soul." The governor became violently angry. He slapped her in the face and ripped off her hair in his anger. Then she was beaten with a whip by his men. Julia remained calm and said that if Christ was flogged and crowned with thorns for her, why should she not endure this punishment for him? Finally, he ordered her to be hanged on a cross until she died. As Julia lay on the cross, she prayed for one last time, and then she died. She died as a result of her faith. Some accounts say that a dove flew from her mouth as she died. Saint Julia underwent a lot of struggles in her short life. She was a slave. She was mocked for her faith. She was even tortured and killed for it. Yet, through it all, her faith remained strong. Saint Julia was declared a patroness of Corsica by the Church in 1809. Saint Julia is often depicted with the palm of martyrdom and the crucifix. She is the patron saint of Corsica, Livorno, torture victims, and pathologies of the hand and the feet. Her feast day is celebrated on May 23rd.